All right. Well, so welcome everyone to time management. I'm going to do a brief intro overview. So, we're going to talk about kind of 5 different portions or topics today. So, the first is going to be what is time? That's going to be a fun one to dive into. How you spend time, then time beliefs, then making time, and being intentional with time. So, let's get
Oh, I love it.
okay. So, that question, what is time, is definitely a bigger question than what we're actually going to be addressing today. So today we're going to be talking about it in its more concrete form, in terms of hours and days and weeks and even minutes and seconds. um, so that's what we'll be focused on today. But since our audience obviously has lots and lots of different backgrounds in various technical fields and certainly possibly theoretical physics, we wanted to throw out just the acknowledgement that this question obviously has lots of different nuanced answers depending how you ask it and what construct you are asking it within. So if we're talking about the universe, it is very different answer to this question. But we're talking about it in a more concrete format today. All right. So a lot of times we hear people sort of in society talk about time as one of our most valuable assets. So it's more valuable than your money. Maybe it's tied to health. You might not be able to say it's more valuable than your health in a lot of ways, but time is one of those concepts that I think we all sort of have this sense that it's sort of a limited commodity, that it's very valuable, and it's something that we can't really get more of. Once time has passed, it has passed. So another way to think about it, uh, funny way to say think about it, is that it is a mental construct. So it's also something that we've created, and sort of, as I alluded to, so we've sort of created this construct of time as the seconds and minutes and hours and days and weeks and months. But again, it's all sort of formulated within our minds in that sense. So it's also all about how we manage our mind and our body within a day. So then, if we kind of take that construct and we think about it more, no pun intended, given that we have power over our minds, we can control what we think about, how we think about it. You can conceptually continue on to say, okay, well, maybe we also have power over our time. And can we then go to, we can create whatever we want with the time we have. And I had there, insert your desired outcome here. I mean, you could start to think, okay, well, then if I can create whatever I want, that could be potentially, a new business, or it could be more time to exercise, or various different things that you could come up with that might be your desires, that you could put in there. And so then, oh my gosh, little brain explosion from that baby over there. I guess I really like mind explosions. That's like apparently my thing. So then we can continue on and kind of think about it and say, okay, if time is so valuable, right? Gold bars valuable or more, how often do we really think and very carefully think about how we manage our time and what we're doing with our time and how we invest our time? So that's kind of where we're going with this. Sorry, my computer is dinging. I'm going to shut that off. Okay.
So I'll jump in here because really, I love to first ask anybody we start working with within the coaching field or in our within coaching is first to really, and actually as scientists too, like what are the facts currently and what do we think they are? So if I were to ask any one of my friends, colleagues, what do you spend your time on? Many of them would say, oh, well, I spend it behind a microscope. I'm a pathologist. Both Brianne and I are pathologists and scientists. So that could be one way we relate to friends and family in the world. We spend time at work, we spend time with the kids, we spend time, cooking dinner and then cleaning up, and we get some sleep and we exercise, right? So it's like, we can paint this picture of like, this is what our life is. So that's one version of it. We have a lot of things that we're choosing to put in our time. But as we then get more honest with ourselves, I really think we get down to the nitty gritty. And so what else are we spending our time? And not just in a kind of ambiguous concept of our day, but more of like a granular detail of our day. So how much time are we really spending on Netflix, on social media? And this picture here in the middle is really just to kind of signify indecision. We spend time in indecision all the time. And how much time does that really take out of our day to sit around thinking about what's the next thing I'm going to do here? What am I going to do there? And so that's a big one. Right. And what about the worry, the anxiety? How much time will we spend ruminating in our minds about what could have been, what should have been, what they're doing wrong, what the world is doing wrong, how the world shouldn't be the way that it is. So we spend a lot of time in our heads worrying and anxious, and that is time. And then the last couple of things down here, anything in excess, anything to escape reality, escape the world can also be used against us in kind of the bigger picture of our life, right? So are we spending time doing other things other than, really taking care of ourselves or checking what time we're spending? So the first really practical tip that we're going to give you for attending this webinar, and just based on what we've shared with you, is for you to, this is valuable, so please, please take the time to do it. But for the last 24 hours, write down everything you spend your time on. Really be curious, and we're scientists and we're, very highly educated people who can break down your day and really ask yourselves, detailed as you can, where are you during the 24 hours in the day? And each time you look at the things that you're doing, really break it down even more, like how many minutes when in the day. And then after you have all the data, without just story, but just really data, then sit down and write your thoughts about how you spend your day. So what do you think about this data now? How are you interpreting the data? What is the story you're spinning about the data that you're seeing? So that can be a very, very powerful exercise. Both Brianne and I have done this, and it's been very interesting to see very interesting to see where a starting point is. And this is, again, just being very honest with yourself without judgment. And so the next exercise is to really think, and this is going back to after you have all your data about your day and the thoughts about your day, what are the belief systems that you think about time? When somebody asks you, how's your day going? How's your week going? What are the things that you think about it? Do you think like, like, I don't have enough time? What are your thoughts? Because really what it comes down to is that time doesn't change, but the way you think about it will change your experience of time. As Brooke Castillo, both of our coach instructors, has mentioned several times and taught us well. So these are the time beliefs that I hear most often. And really, I think both Brianne and I have been there. We know what it's like, and we have pulled ourselves out of these limiting time beliefs. And so some of them are, I don't have enough time, I'm wasting time. And this is a tricky one that comes up in those meetings, those Zoom meetings that we're all attending, right? I'm wasting time. There's never enough time. I wish I had more time, or I just need to fill the time, right? What does that even mean? And when we really do the work, the thought work around this, and you break down what these time beliefs are giving you, they're really just sentences in our mind that we've chosen to think repeatedly. That is what a belief is. And for the top one, really what it's producing for you as you're thinking it. And this is just an example example of my brain. What it does is it goes to scarcity. So the feeling of scarcity when I think the thought, I don't have enough time. Another one, I'm wasting time. I'm often feeling annoyed when I'm thinking the thought, I'm wasting time. There's never enough time leads me to overwhelm. There's never enough time to do all the things, all the grocery, the kids, the work, everything, right? When I think there's not enough time, I feel overwhelmed. When I wish there's more time, oftentimes I'm rushed and I just wish I had more time and I'm feeling rushed, or I need to fill the time. And this is a restless one. I think this is one that a lot of high achievers are unconsciously restlessly filling their time because it's somehow we've made it mean that we're being more productive. We're like tying our self-worth or value to all the stuff we're filling our days with, right? All the productivity. And it's just really what your intention is that ends up being the most important. Brie, I'm going to pass it off to you again.
Awesome. So taking that a little further, so that was a really, really great summary of some thoughts that can create some feelings. So the feelings again are on the left here. So we have that feeling of scarcity. So that's like that there's never enough. So one thing that might create cause you to do is to look for evidence that you don't have enough, to continue seeing the world as a, there's not enough of time, of money, of any things that you can really think of there that you would be having that thought about, that there's not enough. And then that can create a situation where you end up ignoring what you do have or taking it for granted, not recognizing the things you do have. And then that feeling of annoyed, that could maybe create some actions of finding reasons why something is wrong. So you're sort of looking for the thing that's wrong when that thought is I'm wasting my time. And the feeling again of overwhelm, so that sometimes causes us to just sort of spin in our heads or ruminate on whatever is going on. But if you're thinking to yourself there is never enough time, and you're just like thinking that over and over again, you can just sort of spin on it, and then you're not focused on the task you're wanting to achieve. That feeling of rushed, sometimes this is going to create sort of a quickly, thoughtlessly doing things, right? And then you're not really being thoughtful about what you're doing, not being present. You might not be producing the quality of work that you want to produce. Restless, again, that could be just filling your time with, I mean, Netflix or wine or whatever thing that might be your favorite go-to to kind of fill the time, if that's more of an indulgent pleasure-seeking thing. Restless could also produce you filling time with things that are not important, that aren't really pleasurable, that can also occur and be problematic. And then again, what you're creating there as a result is that you're not taking the time to be present with yourself, or create your best result.
I want to also just add in for restless. One thing that I found myself doing at some points was just saying yes to everything. And I think, part of that was wanting to fill the time, the feeling of busy. Somehow I was making that mean that I was, just being
Valuable.
more, right? And without really thinking, saying yes to all the projects, all the like things that people ask you to do, how is that really leading to the goal that you're trying to get, right? And so that's another way. I think buffering is definitely one, but also just the restlessness of needing to be involved in all the projects and all the things, and
Right, right.
do so much.
Okay, so now shifting to how do you making time. So from this kind of construct that we've built, in terms of our thoughts about time, let's say you just take the thoughts that we just went through, right? We had I don't have enough time, I'm wasting my time. And so you can actually think about these thoughts and sort of do a little bit of a word play game almost, and you can take them and turn them into sort of its opposite. So the first one being I have plenty of time, or I'm not wasting my time, or there is enough time, or I have the right amount of time, or I don't need to fill my time. So that's actually, I know it sounds very simple and sort of like, very basic, but it's actually really helpful to even do that type of exercise on some of your thoughts sometimes.
Bree, can I ask a question that I
Sure.
think a lot of the people listening are probably asking themselves?
Wonderful.
So yeah, are you just like covering up the old thought with this thought? And are you like,
Very
it
good
just, it just kind of
point.
seems fake. Like, what are we asking people to do?
So the the short answer might be yes, but the long answer is no. So in and of itself, right? What I just said was you're kind of playing this word game and you're sort of flipping it around to its opposite. But what it really comes down to is having that awareness to start with. That's kind of the basis of this type of thing, is that you become aware of what thoughts are running in your mind. And it might be things that you're not conscious of. And a lot of times that is it. It's you're not really even aware that this thought pattern is running in your life. And so it's becoming aware of that. And then it might be that there are steps in between, or not even might, there are steps in between. So once you kind of have the decision in your head, I, would like to have a different thought. Then you can start to work on how you have that different thought. But then you have to practice, and it's just like exercising, going to the gym, keeping up your physical fitness. You do have to do it pretty much every day and multiple times a day, and you do have to stay on top of it. And that was actually one of the biggest things I realized, was that even in my own life, I had some of these concepts periodically throughout my life, but I wasn't practicing them regularly. And that actually is a really, really important part of this. If you kind of keep practicing regularly, you do start to see that muscle build up over time. And then you get to the point where you're starting to actually think the thought that at first you were thinking was just this, oh, just a band-aid on the wound type thing, the quick fix.
Beautiful answer, Bree. Yes.
Okay. Right. So this is just elaborating on our example and just really, breaking it down, taking it further. So if you have that thought, I have plenty of time. What for me, this is my brain. My brain brought up the feeling of abundance, of there is plenty to go around. There's no need to worry, right? The worry doesn't come into the feeling of abundance. I'm not wasting my time. For me, that was a little bit neutral, like thinking about the meeting. If I'm in the meeting and I'm thinking I'm not wasting my time, I'm probably not going to feel so annoyed. Might be neutral. Still a meeting. No, just kidding. Okay, and then there is enough time that could maybe make you feel calm. There is enough time. I don't have to feel so rushed. Or I have the right amount of time. So if it's just right, maybe you feel satisfied, the Goldilocks concept. Or I don't need to feel the time. For me, that was kind of a feeling of relaxation, not restlessness.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to just add also just really quick about the I'm not wasting time and with respect to the meetings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there could be lots of responses to this one.
I think, yeah, so that might be a thought. I'm wasting my time might feel very truthful to some people, but I would offer you, what is the point of thinking that thought? When, if that's part of your job, then it's sort of like just arguing with reality, which is what I think a lot of us have found ourselves doing during the pandemic, is arguing with reality. And when you're in a meeting thinking the thought, I'm wasting my time, when that is actually what you're supposed to be doing for your job, then all it's doing is bringing you annoyance. It's probably not affecting anyone else in the meeting unless they're thinking that thought too. So I love that particular one for that particular example, because I think a lot of us can relate to that one.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, and so again, in this sort of last step, so if you have your feeling of abundance, then you're probably going to look for evidence that you do have enough. And that might create creative feelings. You might actually produce more, you might produce better work. Or, realistically, you probably will. I think the odds are in your favor. If you're feeling abundant, if you're feeling there's enough, you're probably going to create better work. If you're feeling neutral, and again, that was my feeling, but you might find reasons why things are right, or you might just head in the direction of positive thoughts and feelings, as opposed to kind of going to find all the things that are wrong. And I guess that's also, like, as Ursula was just saying, in terms of like arguing with reality, maybe you will kind of catch yourself and not be arguing with reality, and that would be useful too. And then you could be getting the result that you're acknowledging that this is actually how it should be, and I'm doing my job, and I'm not wasting my time. Then if you're calm, you might be thoughtful but take decisive action, and that could really show up in your work so that you keep making progress and you don't kind of spin or get stuck. If you're feeling satisfied, then you'll hopefully, come from that place and do things in a more calm or mindful manner, as opposed to the rushed kind of work that you could be doing if you're feeling rushed. Sorry, that was a little bit repetitive, but you would end up showing up and be thoughtful and present, and that would show up in your work as well. And then relaxed, you'd be using your time with intent. And I kind of wanted to just say that that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to always be using your time, because in that example we're kind of talking about restlessness. It's more just that whatever it is you're doing it with intent, having thought about if that's what you really want to be doing. um, and then you basically take the time to be present with yourself, which is always a beneficial thing.
So, Brianne graciously volunteered to have her real life example be brought into our webinar here, just to let you know that we not only are giving this webinar for you, but we do the work ourselves. And the reason that we are physicians and doing all these things and also now coaches is because we believe in it so much. So to reassure you here, we just gave Brianna and I took an hour out of her day, and she told me all the things that she wants to, that she does for the week, basically. And we divided it into 4 categories. Self-care is in orange here on the right. Home and family was another kind of bucket. Then there's work, and then there's business. So she had 4 different things, and she knew within each of those that she can get granular, detailed. How many minutes do I want to exercise? What do I really want to have for my time for myself? Bree, how was that for you going through that?
And we recorded it so you can all see, but it was great. It was wonderful. But I mean, it was a little bit uncomfortable, right, to look at it and realize, oh, there's certain things that I realized going through it that I basically was not scheduling in self-care ever. I would attempt to fit it in here and there, but I was not scheduling it. And that was eye-opening for me, for sure. And so, yeah, I mean, it's funny. It was eye opening for me, and I even like I do this work all the time. So it's like just highlighted to me how useful that could be for someone who's not even that familiar with all this type of stuff. Yeah, it was great though. It was very helpful, and I feel like I came away feeling like I have all the tools now.
Yeah. I also want to highlight here that one of the things our brains do really well is processing and taking action and kind of doing, but it's not that great in like that short term storage of information, which is probably why when we cram for tests, the
Mhm.
next day it's all gone, right? So I think a lot of what we do as kind of high achieving people is also just think that we got this. So think that we can just have all the things in our head and have them accessible whenever we need them. Not realizing that just storing it all in our brains without really getting out those details and pulling it out and being intentional, like that takes energy. That takes energy, and it's disorganized in there. And this is the times when you forget to do one thing, or you didn't plan dinner, and then you're like, what's for dinner? And then nobody knows, and it just ends up being extra work in the end. And so what we offer you here is the second kind of exercise you can do after this webinar would be to really commit 1 hour of planning per week. The way I put it into my schedule is Sunday night, I sit down and do this work. And I love the colored pencils or the colored pens, because it really does show me where I'm putting effort in each of my buckets in my life. And like, what am I doing with my time? It's the most valuable thing. I want to know. So I take that hour Sunday evening, and then I put it on my calendar, and I feel really good and prepared for the week. Monday morning, I'm good to go. And I know that I don't have to be anywhere but that place that I decided to be any one time. How many times has anyone listening thought to themselves, I should be picking up my kids now, or I should be working on that thing. I shouldn't be doing this,
Mhm.
right? Shitting all over ourselves. So I think doing this actual hour gets you back hours in your day just by doing this exercise.
And the last thing I wanted to add, I know you were totally talking about this, but I think it's sort of been in the popular press somewhat recently, is the decision fatigue that happens. So certainly, I mean, as pathologists, if you're high volume pathologists, like you would understand that from a work perspective too, right? Like diagnoses, making a lot of decisions. That it's a studied and thing experience, especially for a lot of professionals that have to make decisions all day. So if we're adding our life decisions to all of the decisions we do in our work, we're taking fatigue and adding fatigue to that. And so this is a really great way to sort of take the structure of your life and take that part of decision fatigue out of it. I think that was just I just wanted to mention that because struck a chord for me.
Oh, 100%. I think decision fatigue is like, like I said from that first slide, indecision takes space, takes energy, takes time in your brain. And Bree, share with us what happened after we made the list.
My experience, it's just a sort of a screenshot of my calendar that we did and we made earlier this week as we went through, and really just to highlight sort of what it ends up looking like if you use Google Calendar, but you could use any calendaring system. You end up having your blocks of time blocked off. And then one helpful thing I thought I would mention was just that a lot of times people end up keeping some sort of additional list, and I think in Google Calendar it uses like a task list, or you can have all kinds of different ways of keeping another list that might be things that you're going to slot in sort of at certain times. So it's actually really great to just think of this as a framework. You can do anything you want with it. There's no real right or wrong or rules. And then the last thing I want to say is that it's almost certainly going to be iterative. Your first attempt might be okay, but there's going to be things that you're like, well, that didn't work so well, or I forgot this meeting, or I didn't schedule that thing in, or like I realized, but like wasn't scheduling in my self-care. So sometimes, it's good to just remember that there's no right or wrong way to do it, and you're not failing if it doesn't feel like it's working. It's important to, just keep yourself supported. And of course, anyway, we're here to help with any of that type of thing if it were to come up. But it just is, it's just useful to point out that if it doesn't feel like it's going right the first round, you're not failing.
Oh, so good, Bree. I think if anyone does take up the challenge to do this work, they will for sure find that it doesn't go perfectly, because perfect is not the goal, right? Forward movement and, getting it better is really the goal. And yeah, so I think for me, when I started doing this intentional time management, thoughtful planning of my personal time, my work time, my home life, like all these things, and I actually saw them on paper and how they interconnected. And I love seeing blank white space too, because that just means that is time for either just spontaneous stuff, like not to really think that this is a micromanaging tool. It's not, it's more of like an intentionality tool and a way for us to alleviate, the burden of having it all in our heads and not really trying to be in more than one place at one time. So yeah, it's not going to be perfect. It's a tool to be used for you, not against you. And you make the rules, but know what those rules are, because otherwise you're just living by default and you're living as a consequence of the things around you in your life, not with intent.
Love it.
All right, questions. And let me actually get out of the screen presenter mode so we can go back to, all right. All right, does anyone have any questions? And we're happy to answer them by email as well. If we did say it was half an hour to respect your time, it is actually 3:30 on the dot. So I'm happy to report that. But Brianne, if there's any other things that you can think our audience might want to know.
I don't think so. We'd be happy to hear of any questions anytime.
Yes. And I also want to mention one last thing, that we are starting our course. We're going to have a different section, a different segment specifically to describe it a little bit more. But this is the type of work that we'll dive deep into and get you on track and get you living intentionally and get back some of your sanity and your time and your love of life. So we're excited for that too. Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.